On behalf of Vistas, I welcome you for MA English program. And the name of the course is Age of Milton. It consists of 17 units. So in this video, I'm going to explain you the Unit 1 history of Age of Milton. See, when we talk about Age of Milton, it covers the age 1625 to 1675, which is popularly known as Puritan Age or Age of Milton. Because in this period, the Puritan standards prevailed in England, and also the greatest literary figure, John Milton, who is a Puritan, and he struggled for their righteousness and liberty. And due to that, actually, the Civil War has happened. So the Civil War is between two groups. One group, they were loyal to the kings, and the other group, they were opposing the kings actually. And most of the English people, they remained one, united, and they loyal to the sovereign, that is king actually. Actually, the crisis began when James I, who had recoined the right of royalty from the Act of Parliament, gave too much of premium to the divine right and began to ignore the Parliament, which had created him. And due to that, the hostilities, which began in 1642, lasted till the execution of Charles I in 1649. There was a little political stability during the interim of the 11 years, which I have mentioned. And due to that, the Puritan movement has started. The Puritan movement started influencing immediately after the Renaissance. And it is popularly known as the Second Greater Renaissance. As we know that Renaissance means rebirth. And the rebirth is not only in Parliament and also in the moral nature of man, which awakened the intellectual of the people, especially in the 15th and the 16th century in Europe. Puritanism had two chief objectives. One is personal righteousness, and the second one is civil and personal liberty. In other words, I can say that they aim to make men honest and make them free. And initially, they were projected them as a religious movement. Later, they have become a great national movement, which included English churchmen as well as Calvinist, separatist, conventors, Catholic noblemen, and others. And they played a main role in church as well as in state. And they struggled for a liberty and the righteousness. During the Puritan rule of Cromwell, severe laws were passed. Simple pleasures were forbidden. Theaters were closed, and the standard living was forced upon the unwilling people. So there was a rebellion against Puritanism, which ended the restoration of the King Charles II. And that led to the influence of Puritanism. The influence of Puritanism upon English life and literature was profound. The over-enthusiasm to react against prevailing abuses, he denounced the good thing of life, condemned science and art, ignored the appreciation of beauty, which inurgates secular life. Puritanism destroyed human culture and sought to confine human culture within the circumscribed field of its own particular interest. I can say that it is a fatal to both art and literature. The Puritanism created confusion in literature, likely somberness and pensiveness in poetry of that period actually. In the words of W.J. Long, poetry took new and stalling form in Donne and Herbert. He mentioned the metaphysical poet. On the other hand, the Puritan influence is due to the breaking up of accepted standard in religion and the government. So the literature of the period lacks in concreteness and vitality. In the words of W.J. Long, it is clear that Elizabethan literature is generally inspiring. It throbs with youth and hope and vitality. That which follows speak of age and sadness. And also, its brightest hours are followed by gloom and by the pessimism inseparable from passing of old standard. James I and Charles II were hostile to the interest of the people. The country was divided by the struggle for political and religious liberty. And the literature was divided into spirit as were the struggling parties. And both actually reflected in the dominance of critical and intellectual spirit. Especially Elizabethan literature dominates the literature of the period. And it reflected a slow decay of drama. The civil disturbance and the strong opposition of the Puritans was the main cause for the collapse of drama. The actual dramatic work of the period was small and unimportant. The closing of the theatre in 1642 gave a final jolt to the development of drama. So, as summary, I tell you that the age in which Milton lived and wrote is known in history as the Puritan Age. It is filled with political and religious strife, especially the Civil War, the victory of Puritanism, Restoration, and the Renaissance. So all this happened in the Puritan Age. It was indeed the period of the altar glow of the brilliant age. The emotional fervor had decayed, yielding place to play of intellectual fancy. Literary fashions were rapidly and radically changing. In short, it was an age of transition, the age of understanding, unable to take pleasures in exuberant fancy of such poets as Spencer, and shocked by the shocked by the metaphysical poets was at hand. The new literature that was coining was classic, but the word signified that it sought restraint rather than inspiration. Where the title conferred on the basis of the study of the great art of antiquity, the world, which would deserve it, all other would be. Milton, who wrote Paradise Lost, Samson Agonist, Paradise Regained, and other famous poems. No poet of the later age that goes by the name neoclassical showed as great and accurate understanding of the beauty of the ancient as Milton. That is why we call Milton as a legend of the Restoration period. He was a perfect fusion of the influence of the Renaissance and the Reformation. And I can say he is the one who blended Renaissance and Reformation. No other poet was at once so profoundly religious and so much an artist. So he is the one who have composite religion as well as literature. The rise of the Puritanism had made the middle class people a religious minded one. He produced a noble as well as a hard type of character. In consequence, it looked askance at art, science, human culture, and whatever else makes life sweet and beautiful. Therefore, I can say it is a fatal to literature. Unfortunately, Milton transcended this limitation of Puritanism. He was not a representative of the age, but stood as an alien conqueror dominating it from above. John Milton had been called belated Elizabethan, with his two faces turned in two directions. One is political and other one is religious. The Civil War had divided the nation into two rival camps. I already told you that a group of people supported the king, the other group of people, they were against the king actually. So the output of the age was abundant and also excellent. The opposition of the Puritans stopped dramatic activities. The metaphysical poets were of a religious and mystical cast of mind. John Donne, among the poets, fashioned a new kind of poetry which blended wit and passion, so that he is popularly known as the pioneer among the metaphysical poets. On the other hand, we have Cavalier poets, and they were Catholics. They dealt with the theme of love as well as life. From Ben Jonson, they derived their classical restraint and consigned lucidity. The style is so simple, polished, and graceful. And I hope you have understood the introduction with the age of Milton. And these are all the keywords which help you to understand. I have used these words: Puritans, Cavalier poets, and Civil War. And Puritans, they are the member of religious reform movement, and they were known as Puritanism. And Cavalier poets, a school of English poets of the 17th century that came from the class that supported King Charles I during the Civil War. And already I told you that Civil War is a war between the people who live in the same country. Okay, and these are the terminal questions which will help you to understand the entire concept. Write a short note on Puritanism. What is the cause and impact of Civil War? Discuss the dominance of critical and intellectual spirit. Thank you.